This video will demonstrate the assembly of the Sole E35 Elliptical unit, 2013 model. I've got all the parts laid out here, and my first video we showed you how to unpack it and move it downstairs. You definitely want 3 people to move that big heavy part, the flywheel with the foot pedals stick out so far, they're clumsy. A third person needed to hold those up in the air while you move it. Now I've just slid them together without bolting them yet to the base, which is there. And the instruction manual looks straightforward. There's 4 steps to assembling it. It lists your parts for each step, and they're all separate in the container, so you can keep them separated. So you want to check all your parts for each step. Just don't open them until you're ready for that step. Then there's 4 steps to assembly. First one is the incline rail and mast. You can see it there. The second step is the lower handlebars and arms. There. Third step is the upper handlebar arms. And the fourth step is all the plastic components that kind of cover all the joints and all the housing and the cosmetic things. And you might want to wait to put them on, try the unit out, make sure nothing's squeaking. It's easier to adjust them before you put those plastic pieces on. So we're going to start with step 1. Got the hardware laid out here. So on the first step, you're basically connecting the 2 main pieces together. You start with one on each side with a lock washer on the inside, and then you do 4 holes on the top with a strange combination. It has a lot of parts here. You have the bolt, you have the lock washer, the regular washer, and then the star washer underneath that. 3 different washers. Because you actually don't have to use any bolts on the main frame here, which is good because you have to lift the whole thing up if you did. So you put 4 of them in there and tighten them down. That holds the 2 main pieces of the elliptical together. Once you've secured the 4 bolts here, it's actually much nicer to use a ratchet with a socket set than to do just a wrench. It'll save you a lot of time. Then you connect these 2 wires, snap these together, your electrical wires here. Ready for the next part. Next you have to install the console mast, which is this. And don't remove this thing right here. This is the twisty tie that goes all the way up the mast, and you have to use that to connect to the computer cable and fish it, pull all the way up through the mast. Otherwise you're in trouble. So at the other end, you'll see, if you can see that, you have your twisty tie right here. So you can pull on this and that'll pull it right, fish it right through the mast to get your computer cable up at the top. And then you install this. Make sure you first put the housing on the mast and then set it in place. Once you pull that computer cable through there, make sure you don't pinch the wires. You have to lift up on all the wires so they don't get pinched as you slide that on there. Okay, let's try this. I've already twisty tied the end of this computer cable. Now I'll pull it through from the other end. It's kind of tough to pull. Help feed it through. There's some tight spots in there. There, got past the hard part. Keep it coming all the way up. There's more wires in the way here, so keep pulling it up. It takes a little jimmying. Now, I got that slid in place without pinching the wires. And at the top, we have where I tie it onto the computer cable with the twisty tie, and my other electrical wires coming out, which only go part way down right there. Next is attaching the mast to the main frame with, it already has one pre-installed bolt here that you'd have to screw in. This is a longer bolt here, and these 2 short bolts, you actually tighten these the strongest and first before you tighten the side ones. And it says to tighten these all as tightly as you can, because this is what attaches to your whole mast. And if there's any movement here, it's going to make noise. So you get them as hard as you can, tighten them down. These have curved washers to match this curved surface here. And I just tied up the housing here with a little that strapping tape temporarily, so it'll be out of my way. But tightened all 4 bolts down real strongly. Next step is to attach the wire connectors to the console, and then mount the console with the 4 screws. Might be easier with another person, unless you can jimmy in here like I did. Definitely easier with 2 people, but the long cables are really easy. The shorter ones, you'll have to get it closer to attach those 3-pin ones, but you'll have 2-pin ones, and you'll have 2 3-pin ones, so you know where those go. And you've got the computer cable, which is a mini pin one. It should snap into place. And you'll have 1 extra 4-pin connector that doesn't get used, which is explained in the directions. That's not used on this model, so if you feel like you're missing 1 wire, you're not. Make sure those are secure in there. They won't pull out. And then these are a little shorter, so you're going to have to get it closer. Oh, we'll put the computer one in first. Computer cable. See which way that goes in there. It goes upside down, so we got to bend it a little bit. There we go. I don't really feel it snap into place, but it just pushes on until it stops. Okay, and these 2 shorter ones, a little bit trickier because you don't have much leeway there. They go down to the middle of the mast, and they control the handlebar controls. But they're not real long, so you gotta, there we go. And then 4 screws will attach that to there. So be careful when you put the console on here that you don't pinch the wires. You have to fish your fingers on in the back and make sure they're tucked in. Then you can put the 4 screws in and then tighten all 4 screws down to secure the console. If something's not working, you can take this easily apart again and make sure everything's plugged in right. Step 2 is assembling the lower handlebar arms. There's not, this is the diagram. There's not a lot of hardware for this step, so shouldn't take too long. Next step, to install the lower arm units. You install 2 wavy washers, 2 on each side, and then these come with a twisty tie holding the bearings in place. They don't slip out during shipping, so you want to cut those off. And make sure it's labeled with the left, so you know which side is the left. Curve goes toward the back side of the unit. Slide those on. And then do the other side. Next, if you put both arms on, you'll install the bolt with the big washer at each end. Tighten them down firmly. The biggest cause of noise in these things, clunking or noise, is loose bolts. So if you end up with that, it tells you to go back and tighten all the stuff that you did during assembly. Next, you have to attach the lower arm to the swinging arm, and it comes with a twisty cable tie so that you don't lose the bearings. That little pin won't come out, so we remove that. The bolt goes from the outside, no washer. The inside has a washer and a nylon lock nut. And tighten that down each side. Step 3 is the upper handlebar assembly. Doesn't look too bad. Diagram. Here are the parts for step 3. To attach the upper handlebars, set it in place. Then you stick a washer plus 2 bolts in. This end of the bolt goes facing toward the user, and you stick a washer and a nylon lock washer on each of those. On the middle one, you stick a curved washer, a bolt, another curved washer, and then you grab another nylon nut and tighten all of those 3 bolts down on both sides. Then you'll be plugging in the wiring, which is twisty tied together. This controls your elevation and your resistance while you're working out, and it's on the handlebars. So you'll just take the connector and see which way it goes in and snap it in there. So it must go in there. Snap it in there. You can hide that inside the console. Then the rest of the excess wiring, keep it out of the way. Shove it up. There you go. You gotta firm up all the bolts good and tight. There's gonna be a lot of movement in your arms, a lot of forces going through it. It kind of bends the metal a little bit as it tightens up. Once you get that secure, you've got this little grommet which protects the wires. Put it around the wire and stick it in that hole, which is nice to keep the wires from getting rubbed on. There we go. Perfect. Now, before the final step, which is assembling the plastic parts, you want to make sure it's operating good before you cover everything up with plastic. You'll want to make sure the tracks are clean and lubricated. Put that bar on top of something and take some rubbing alcohol. Who knows what got on there during shipping or packing. Take a little alcohol with a lint-free cloth. Wipe off your tracks, track bars, so they're clean. Get any dirt and grime off them. And once they're clean, take a little of the lube that they supplied with the kit. Rub it on with that lint-free cloth or your fingers. Put a little lube on there. Because it's essential this is smooth and lubricated. It doesn't take a lot of lube. Then you won't have noises. Number one cause of noise is parts aren't tightened. And you gotta make sure all your joints are tightened up. If it isn't that, the second cause is any kind of dirt or grime built up on your tracks. It'll sound like it's coming from somewhere else, but from what I've read, it comes from these tracks and you think it's somewhere else. When you get these cleaned and lubricated, then it should be smooth. Smooth operation. Then I recommend you get on it and do some revolutions and make sure there's no noises coming out of it. You can tighten those up easily now. Now jump on it and just see if it's smooth and quiet operation. Well, that's pretty quiet. That's a pretty quiet operation. That's one thing I liked about this E35. Such a smooth and quiet operation. Well, I plugged her in, turned the power button on down by where you plug the power in, and the console powered up. It's in a display mode, so it tells you how to get it out of display mode, so it won't stay on. When you leave the thing after a while, it'll shut off and save power. But it looks like display is working good. We'll have to try it out, and I'll do a review on it after I've used it a little bit. Next step is the step number 4, plastic parts installation, which requires a lot of screws, as you can see, and all these plastic parts, cosmetic pieces to cover up all the joints and make it look all pretty. It looks like we're trying to assemble Iron Man, the first Iron Man, with all this stuff. Now we're working on the cosmetic parts of the machine, make it look nice and finished, but they're kind of piddly. Take a little time. This one goes on first. And it's easier if you turn it facing up so you can get the Phillips head screws tightened in there a lot easier before you attach it to the frame. Tighten those up first, and then you can turn this until it lines up with the holes. And you can put your sheet metal screw in one on each side to hold it in place. So it works a lot easier if you just tip it up first. So it's not going in straight. But it doesn't feel very straight in there. Now she's going in. Okay. And one on the other side. This is where the little screwdriver they give you comes in handy because it's short. It will fit between the machine and the side. So it actually does come in handy if you don't have a small screwdriver, a short one. The putting the cosmetic stuff on takes a little bit of time, but it does make it look finished, so it's important. There's a lot of plastic pieces to put on. That holds in place, and this fits over the top of that. It's held in by a sheet metal screw, and then there's two regular screws that hold this piece together. I find it easier to just put those in first to hold the two pieces together with the Phillips head regular screws. This joint is complete. I think I misspoke. The Phillips head screws are actually these that don't have the pointy end. It's easier to install the sheet metal screws that have the pointy end on them. Put those in first, which holds the unit together. And then the Phillips head screws hold it to the frame, so put those in last and it'll go good. Next we're going to install the sliding wheel covers, which go over your wheels, keep them protected from things hitting them. And that's going to use the Phillips head screws without the pointy ends on them. One in each. There we go. Another one. Get easier to use my electric drill. And do the other side. Next we're going to install the front stabilizing covers. Just plop around there, just one screw. There we go, and then the other side. Next we're going to install the incline cover brackets, which hold the plastic housing on. The tab faces to the rear of the unit for attaching to the plastic, and use the thicker screws to hold them on each side. Reverse that on the other side. Next we got the rear incline cover. Slips over from this angle and secures with two Phillips head screws. One on each side. Like it's cross-threading. straight. Well, what happened on this installing this cover is they hadn't tapped out that screw hole very well on both of those, and it got really hard, almost really stripping out my screw. So I had to take a little tap and die set and just tap out those screw holes a little bit because they were not done. Those two right there were not done. That's the only problems I've run into so far. Once I clean them out, I'll be able to get that attached on there. Now we've attached the rear cover over those brackets you just put on there. There's 4 screws. There's 2 on the top and 2 on the sides. Get started, I could use my electric. The only glitch I've run into with installations is just that. So, otherwise it looks real nice when you get the covers on. Next we're going to install the front and rear handlebar cover. Start on this side. When I first put this on, I could see that my wiring was going right across the hole of the screw. So you need to tuck this wire behind the bolt. Tuck it away when you get it on there so it doesn't get pinched in there or screwed in there. Then get the mating surface for it. Snap it together. And you're going to use those sharp sheet metal screws again to attach it. These pointy ones, a little bit tricky to get your head of your Phillips on them. Start screwing them in to hold them together. They're up at an angle here. There, I feel it. I feel it going in. Tighten all 4 of them on, and then you repeat on the other side. Next, we'll be installing the incline rail cover, and they recommend having power on, raising up the unit to level 8 on the incline. I guess it clears the steps out of your way a little bit. Then you just stick it down here. Use 4 screws to attach that. Which makes a nice finish. I don't think you want to step on that plastic because it's not very tough, but it does make it look nice. So really, if you had to take some of these parts off and say tighten up the joints on the arms, those aren't that hard to take off a few screws and you can get them apart and readjust, tighten them up if they're making some noise. Well, this is the last part of the plastic installation. This actually was the first step, and I saved it to the last. I think this kind of looks like Iron Man's first suit, doesn't it? That's what I think. Anyway, it's 2 plastic pieces that you fit over the console. You'll have 2 regular screws that hold it to the frame and in the front, and then you'll have 2 screws on the bottom, which are those pointy sheet metal screws to hold the 2 pieces together. And there's 1 more screw on this side, regular screw that goes into the frame on the other side. So 3 of them hold on the frame, and 2 of them hold 2 plastics together. It goes like that and gives you a little fit and finish to that. So I'll screw that in just a second here, and then the plastics are all done, and I'm actually all done assembling it. Well, here it is, finally done, completely assembled, and all the trim's on there, so that makes it look pretty finished. E35 Sole Elliptical. I'll be doing a review on it after I've used it for a little bit. I do like these handlebars. You can grab them with the palm down, palm up, or the regular side, or the wide side, or you can hang on here if you're not using the arms. So yeah, I'm gonna try this out. I can't wait. Well, it took Took me actually about 4 hours, but took me way longer because of stopping it to videotape, find the right lighting, and figuring out what I'm going to do and say next. So I probably could have done it in about 2.5 hours if I wasn't stopping to do all the videotaping for YouTube. So I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something if you're going to put one of these together. There was none on YouTube I could find demonstrating how to put this together. So it's kind of nice to actually see it. So it did take a little figuring out from the manual to figure out where it goes where. Thanks.